Hello class, this is week 1 of the Intro to Anthropology class. I'm Professor Jaco Tanawaren. I'll be your professor for the course. First of all, I just want to tell you my idea for laying out these videos. In general, what I want to do is do a recap of the previous week. Obviously this week there'll be no recap. And then we'll go over the weekly assignments, important names to know, my reasoning behind the videos, things that you need to read. And then I'll end with the discussion board details. So this week, let me start by saying nothing replaces reading. You're going to have 2 chapters due to read each week. This is a very, very fast and short course, 6 weeks. So you really need to keep up on those readings. I want you to read the syllabus. It's really important to know how the course is laid out, the etiquette that's expected for the course, which FIU has really good policies. I want you to take the civility pledge as part of your introduction video, which is the discussion board assignment. And it's going to tell you what the due dates are. So speaking of the due dates, when are things due and what's going to impact your grade? 1, the discussion board is worth 30% of your grade. It looks like it's only worth 3 points each week, and in total it's 30% of your grade. The peer review, which is part of the discussion boards, you only do comments for those people that you're in your group. And then you'll have a quiz due for each week, the first 5 weeks of the course on Saturday, and then the final exams will be due on the Friday, which is the last Friday of the course, July 27th. The important names to know are Franz Boas is considered the father of American anthropology. He was a Jewish immigrant to the United States in 1886. And he began working at Columbia University. He opened the first department of anthropology in the United States in 1905 and founded what is known in anthropology as the 4-field approach, which we'll learn about later in this video. Also, Lewis Henry Morgan is a pioneer American anthropologist. He was cited by Freud, by Karl Marx, by Charles Darwin, and he's considered a great thinker in anthropology. Another name to know is Bronislaw Malinowski. He is considered the founder of ethnography, and we'll talk more about him next week, but he will be on the test, so he's a famous name to know. Edward B. Tyler is also another American anthropologist, and it's interesting because whereas Franz Boas was an immigrant to the United States and considered the father of American anthropology, Edward B. Tyler is an American anthropologist who's considered the father of British anthropology. Clifford Geertz is an anthropologist who is well known for his methodology, which he called the thick description. So my reasoning behind this week's videos are you're going to get a quick overview of anthropology in general and why it's important, and then you're going to get the 4 fields in short videos. So there are your 4 fields. You've got cultural anthropology, biological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology. So in chapter 1 is Intro to Anthropology. Anthro means human, and ology, as in biology, psychology, sociology, and anthropology, means the study of. So literally, it's the study of humans. But wait, you might say, other disciplines study humans as well, such as biology and sociology. So what makes anthropology unique? Well, anthropology is the holistic biocultural comparative study of humanity across time and geography. Unlike other fields, anthropology studies the whole of the human condition, origins and changes in a society's language, their religion, their economy, their political structure. It studies the rules that govern our gender roles, our family structures, and our racial categories. It even studies how various societies have adapted both biologically and culturally to their environment, including skin color. One of this week's videos, for example, will clearly show how skin color is a biological adaptation strategy to environmental factors. Which brings me to race. Why do I even mention race in this first week when in the text it isn't until chapter 11? Well, in 2010, the American Anthropological Association put out a report entitled Racism in the Academy, the New Millennium. The report acknowledged how white privilege has been maintained in anthropology, both for students and professors in both universities and the field. Historically, anthropology has been responsible for creating racial categories and reinforcing racial stereotypes that the Academy now considers to be socially constructed, or in other words, made up. One of this week's videos on race shows why we consider racial categories to be artificial, not real, based on how racial categories have changed with US Census categories. I talk about race in the first week because although racial categories are made up, the real social consequences of racism results from a history of racial classification.
Darren Martin thought it would be an easy move into his new Upper West Side apartment. Then all of a sudden,
somebody called the cops on me in my own building. About how many of y'all? About 6 of y'all showed up.
Darren decided to capture the event on Instagram Live, including hearing the chilling police radio call that stemmed from someone calling with their suspicion that Darren was stealing something.
Someone was trying to break into the door.
Trying to break into my own apartment.
All the doors, banging, possibly a weapon, large tool.
Oh my God.
Say I had a weapon on me, or that I was banging on doors and I was possibly trying to leave through the rooftop.
Darren, who has worked for the Obama administration and the House of Representatives, is now working for the city of New York. What disturbs him the most, though, is the profiling.
How people are looking at you and how they're perceiving you is, I think, what could have, really sometimes deadly consequences.
Anthropology has been a large part of that history, and although we seek to correct it now, we need to start correcting it from the beginning of anthropology classes. I also do this because challenging our ideas that race are fixed categories will take time. After all, what is our culture if not based on our idea of race? So chapter 2, what is culture? So if I'm not white, what am I? And where does my culture come from? So don't let the book confuse you about its talk about the great divide between culture and nature. Culture is nature. It's human nature. And while many animals, including humans, live in society, but only humans have culture. And all human groups have culture. This is called the psychic unity of man. Well, Edward B. Tyler, one of the first anthropologists to try to define culture, said, "Culture is that complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired as a member of society." Clifford Geertz, in 1973, stated that culture was the control mechanisms for governing behavior, and agreed with Tyler that they were based on learning. So culture is learned. Culture is shared, unifying a group through common experiences, customs, and symbols. Culture is also symbolic. Language is one of those symbols. Culture is all-encompassing. It consists of so many things that we can't even name them all, and we don't even notice most of them or their impact. Culture is integrated. Also so integrated that I can't even separate one thing out from another. I say culture consists of the acceptable behaviors and customs that each of us acquire as part of a society that we grew up in. I'd also like to talk about ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. If I grew up learning what is culturally acceptable behavior, what do you think happens when I run into someone whose acceptable behavior is unacceptable in my culture? Culture clash, culture shock. How do you feel when people are talking really loud in a restaurant? Or when a baby's crying in the movie theater? Or when a parent spanks their child in the supermarket? Whenever you judge what another person is doing because it's not acceptable in your own culture, you're experiencing ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism tells us what we do in our own culture is the right way to do something. Taking your shoes off before you enter a house or a church, sitting on the floor, owning a dog. These are all culturally based practices that might not be normal in someone else's culture. Cultural relativism is what anthropologists try to use in order to examine a culture through the lens of what that culture views as normal and acceptable behavior, and not through our own biases. That's not easy, and some people would say it's not possible. But that's a lesson for another day. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is our discussion board. So in the discussion board, you get to tell us what your culture is. What are the societies that you grew up in, and what did you learn about what is culturally acceptable behavior? You also get to share an experience of culture shock. When have you judged based on what you were doing or what they were doing? And share that experience with us and what you learned from it or how it made you feel. Your peers are going to share their own experiences, and then we're going to compare our answers. Maybe we have things in common, and maybe we have things that surprise even ourselves. Thank you.